What's up, everybody? My name is MrHurriicane, and today I am recapping the offseason for my San Diego Chargers franchise. It was the first offseason in the series, and it was a fun one. If you do wish to watch the live stream version, it is on my channel. It is broken up into two videos. The first one is an hour and 15 minutes. It's everything before the draft. And then there's a 59-minute video. Couldn't quite get to the hour mark, but that is the entire draft and a little bit of draft recap afterwards. But here I'll be recapping what went down in this offseason, which began with simming past Super Bowl week. And we see that the New England Patriots won the Super Bowl 51 against the Carolina Panthers. And Tom Brady, like the man he was compared to for most of his career, Peyton Manning, rides off into the sunset with another Super Bowl win. But then we get to retirements, and we see that two players from our team have retired. It's Antonio Gates and Danny Woodhead. The Gates retirement did not catch me off guard. I knew the Woodhead retirement was potentially going to happen, but I didn't think it actually would. So that was a spot I had to fill going into re-signing and free agency. This began here with Manti Te'o, our most key player in this list. And I decided to not give him an offer because I don't think that he's enough of a complementary player to Denzel Perryman, meaning he doesn't cover very well, so I don't want to have two starting inside linebackers and neither is going to be a reliable cover guy. Then from there weren't a lot of players I wanted to offer contracts to. Many were backups that didn't see much playing time. There was Dontrell Inman here, and I did want to keep him, but not at what he was requesting, so I thought I could get him cheaper in free agency. A lot of these players I didn't really look much at. There were a couple here. Tenny Palapoi, I gave him a cheap offer. He ended up re-signing. And then there was Tyrell Williams, who had a nice impact in Season 1, and he signed on for a one-year contract. There was Chris Brown, who had like one game where he was pretty exciting, and he also is sticking around on a one-year deal, and we'll see if he can stick in training camp. Now here's a list at more retirements that we see. Reggie Nelson, Donald Penn, and Sebastian Janikowski all retire from our rivals, the Oakland Raiders. The Broncos also had DeMarcus Ware retire, so it's nice to see some of those players retire from teams we face twice a year. The Vikings had 4 players retire, and the Ravens had a couple big departures with Terrell Suggs and Steve Smith. Once I got all the way to the preseason, I also saw Frank Gore as a late retiree. So now we move on to unrestricted free agency, and at first glance, you can tell that it's not a strong free agent class. Shaq Barrett was probably my favorite prospect here, but it wasn't going to be a player I was actually looking to even extend an offer to. I wanted a backup quarterback. Thankfully, Philip Rivers stuck around. I wanted to fill in Danny Woodhead's role. I'm looking for safety help, pass rush depth, D-line depth, offensive line. Barrett would have been nice, especially to take him from Denver, but I thought his price tag would be too much. First thing I did was look at these running backs. Isaiah Crowell, perhaps, is our thumper off the bench. And then there's Andre Ellington, who I thought would be a pretty good replacement for Danny Woodhead. 66 catching is one of the better catching spots you're going to find for a lot of these free agent backs. It's not a very highly rated attribute, but I thought that Ellington can give you that elusiveness and has a lot of the same traits that Woodhead provided. Then there was Cordero Patterson. I checked him out because I wanted to get another return guy and some help at wide receiver. But Patterson doesn't offer a whole lot beyond the return specialization. The offensive line free agent class was not very good whatsoever. And then I wanted to check out player regression. And we see some ratings going down for players like Philip Rivers and Dwight Lowry and Brandon Mebane, along with Brandon Flowers, who struggled down the stretch. And then we see 3 of our starting offensive linemen regressing. Orlando Franklin's pass blocking was down to a 68. Absolutely unbelievable. So I knew that I wanted to unload Brandon Flowers this offseason, but I didn't want to suffer the cap penalty. So I tried to find the team that had a need at cornerback, and I found the Saints. I just wanted to dump his salary, and I offered Flowers for a 6th-round pick, and they took that deal, and I was very happy with that move. But look at Orlando Franklin here with 71 run block and 68 pass block. That's a salary I'd love to get rid of. Unfortunately, he's only a 72 overall, and he's under contract for 3 more seasons. So it looks like he's going to be a highly compensated backup for us. And maybe next offseason I unload his salary and do take a penalty, but a smaller one. Here is DJ Fluker, who's entering the last year of his rookie deal. He has 73 pass block and 77 run block. Joe Barksdale has 85 pass block, so I don't want to move on from him, especially with it being pretty tough to find offensive linemen in free agency. But there was one that offered a lot of upside, only 26 years old, and that is J.C. Tretter, center from the Green Bay Packers. And I was offering him north of $4 million a season, but I thought it was a good value for a player of his caliber. My idea was to move him to guard potentially. Then there was Ryan Wendell. He had 94 impact block, and I wanted more competition at guard, so I offered him a low deal. I wouldn't mind having Geno Smith as the backup quarterback, but I didn't want to offer him a multi-year contract without taking a look at the other rookies first. Anthony Fasano is still a great blocking tight end, and I always want to have at least one of those guys on the roster. That was the first round of free agency. Nothing too exciting, but we did get a lot of contracts accepted. Ryan Wendell, Anthony Fasano, Andre Ellington, and J.C. Tretter. And I'll come back to J.C. Tretter later on in the video. But I was happy to get those 4 guys signed. And then I wanted to go back to quarterback, like I mentioned. I don't want to necessarily pay a lot for a backup, especially because we have to think about who is going to succeed Phillip Rivers. There were a couple second-round prospects that I liked, and here was a prospect that performed very well at the Combine, Gordon Urban, A throw power, B+ short accuracy, and B throw on the run. Very good signs there for a 7th-round prospect. And because Combine numbers were out, I wanted to check out a bunch of my favorite prospects like Sheldon Ladler, power back. And there was also Barry Nasecki, another power back from San Diego State. No idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it was suggested in the comments during the stream, so I'm running with that right now. Lorenzo Mallard, a lot of good middle linebackers in this class that was stacked, and that's why I was so confident in letting Manti Te'o go. The cornerback class at the top really let me down a little bit because there weren't a lot of complete corners that I thought were worth a first-round selection. My favorite first-round prospects were honestly the wide receivers I had scouted. Reggie Shepard, 6'6", 236, a big go-up-and-get-it receiver who ran a 4.48. Then there's Gant Suggs, who had a very disappointing Combine. Before the Combine, I liked Suggs more than Shepard, and that switched after the Combine numbers were out. More middle linebackers here. Zach LaVine with a high vertical. Where have I heard this before? Very good at agility drills and strength as well. Charlie McCardell from Tennessee, a prototype with a 4.57 40 and great agility drills. I like these middle linebackers a lot. Later in the draft, Sylvester Morrell, 6'6", 220, could be a gem here at wide receiver despite not performing great at the Combine. And the safeties, they also let me down. None were very fast and the coverage ratings weren't that great for them. So then I headed back to the free agent market. I offered David Bruton Jr. a contract. Then I remembered I forgot to give a offer to Dontrell Inman, and he was still available, so I gave him that offer right there, around $5.5 million. Then Chris Banjo. I was loading up on these veteran safeties, especially because I wanted to move on from my current veteran safeties. So the next round was set to include a few potentially, as I offered contracts to Bakari Rambo as well. We sim past this stage. And all 3 of those safeties signed with the Chargers. We also got Dontrell Inman back. Now I wanted to check out some draft stories here to see what the media was talking about. And there was one player that definitely caught our attention in the stream, and that was running back Abraham Rich. Now, I wanted to find Danny Woodhead's replacement. I believe I did that. I also wanted a power back, but it's hard to ignore the talent of Abraham Rich here. He was a player I had to think about a lot after I realized how good he was. Then there was a trade that caught my attention, as Julius Thomas was traded back to Denver in exchange for Bradley Roby. So now we have to deal with Julius Thomas in that Denver passing game. Further scouting, we found a nice 7th round prospect here with Larry Wilbur, B- man coverage, B- zone coverage. I found a few more players that I liked, and we go into pretty good depth there in the stream if you want to check that out. But now it's time to get into the NFL draft. We picked 18th here in the first round, and we're set to have 1 pick in every round plus 2 in the 6th. So Cleveland was on the clock first, and they selected a wide receiver, not a quarterback. And that left the Chicago Bears with the chance to select Josh Rasmussen. And after the draft, I found out he was an 84 overall quarterback. After that, cornerbacks flying off the board 3 in a row. And at number 8, one of my favorite middle linebackers, Lorenzo Mallard, went to the New Orleans Saints. The Broncos then replaced Shaq Barrett with the Heisman Trophy winner from Clemson. We'll check out his rating soon. Followed by the Chiefs, they took a defensive end. He ended up being very good as well. The Browns had another pick right before us, and they ended up selecting a defensive end. So no quarterback yet for Cleveland. It put us on the clock. I was surprised so many cornerbacks went off the board, but it didn't really impact what I wanted to do here in the very first round. None of these trade offers were very good in my opinion, so it was time to make the first selection in this series. Here was my watch list. With so many needs, I wanted to take the highest quality player I could. So it was a best player available approach, and I ended up selecting Reggie Shepard, wide receiver from USC, and here are his ratings. Superstar development with 90 speed, 85 catch, 97 jumping, 86 spectacular catch, exactly what I wanted from a big body receiver, and even beyond my expectations. Now, Gant Suggs went a few picks later to Miami. We'll compare the two later on, but I was very happy with how this began. But then we see the middle linebackers going off the board, Zach LaVine and Charlie McCardell back to back, before we were set to pick in the second round at pick 50. And this really messed up my plans a little bit. You'll see why here in a moment. I had a couple good trade offers. I wanted this to be the middle linebacker spot. Here is my watch list. And all that were left after all those middle linebackers I scouted were these two. Two players who we scouted to be worse prospects than projections said. So I couldn't take a middle linebacker in that spot. I had to trade down with the Seahawks. We go down 9 slots, get their 3rd round pick next year. I like that value. Nothing that ruined my plans moving forward went off the board in these 9 picks between us. And then we were set to pick at 59 overall, and this time I had to think about Abraham Rich. I thought he was one of the most talented players available. It wasn't a need. I thought, as I talked about him in the stream, I called him basically Melvin Gordon with better carrying. And that's a great option if you want to perhaps move on from Gordon after his rookie contract. Here is Leonard Howell, who was a 3-4 pass rusher, and then tight end Cameron Blanton, who I didn't scout but had a monster combine at 6'5", 266. I spent so much time on this second round selection, and I decided to go with Leonard Howell. It ended up that he wasn't a very good pass rusher. His finesse and power moves, both there in the low to mid 60s. His coverage also wasn't very good. However, he did appear to be a good run stopper and an option to start next to Denzel Perryman. So I wasn't entirely thrilled with that. And then Abraham Rich went to the Tennessee Titans of all teams a few picks later. And Cameron Blanton ended up going to the Chicago Bears. So let's move on to the 3rd round. And this was a spot where I didn't think there was a ton of value on the board. But I did like Caesar Butler quite a bit. B+ man coverage, 6 foot, and the fastest 40 in this combine. I selected him and was very happy with the results. 87 man coverage, only 76 zone, but quick development. That zone could be raised. He also has great agility. I think getting a player like him in the 3rd round is good value. Later, the Titans took Sheldon Ladler, my favorite power back. So they want all the running backs apparently already with DeMarco Murray and Derrick Henry. Moving on into the 4th round. This was my watch list, and it wasn't what I was hoping for at this point in the draft. There just wasn't a lot of value, I thought. So I figured, you know what? Gordon Urban is one of my favorite prospects left. He He was the 5th rated quarterback on the board. I selected him there in the 4th round, and I don't think he's going to be the successor to Phillip Rivers that I immediately thought he could be. The medium accuracy and deep accuracy would take a lot of work to raise. Even with quick development, I think it's a long shot. However, as a backup, I don't think it's a bad option. We'll see how he does this preseason. Later, the Bears took Sylvester Morrell. They were having an awesome offensive draft. Later in the 5th round, I made a move I typically don't do, which is trading up with a division rival, and this does happen from time to time, in the draft at least, and I gave up our 7th to move up just 4 spots to get the player I wanted. I was very worried he'd be taken, and I selected Barry Nsekhe, and I believe actually he was my favorite power back over Sheldon Ladler. And Nsekhe comes in with 88 speed, 86 trucking, and 92 stiff arm, and we'll see what Ladler's ratings look like here after the draft is complete. Moving on, Rashawn Wilkerson goes to the Steelers, one of my only safety prospects I liked in this class. And then in the 6th round, I had 3 selections to make. Finally, addressing offensive line, I went with Tavadis Bethel, who had 80 run block and 80 pass block. I think with low strength and impact blocking, he'll be a backup, but probably a fairly good one at least. With my second to last selection, I selected Keenan McAllister, who has good speed, acceleration, and finesse moves. He'll be an outside linebacker off the bench for us in pass rush spots. And with the last selection, the chat was telling me to go get this guy because I had kind of let him slip my mind, Larry Wilbur. With our final selection, Larry Wilbur is the pick with superstar development at 6'1", 180, 22 years of age, 81 man, 81 zone, very agile, 89 speed, 50th in true talent. That was a great way to end this draft. The draft didn't go perfectly for us, but I thought we came away with some very good players, especially at the very top and bottom of the class. Reggie Shepard should really make this offense interesting, and it turned out that Gant Suggs wasn't as fast as I had hoped. He still had superstar development, but I do prefer Shepard over him even after seeing the ratings. Look at the Bears though. Cameron Blanton, 88 speed, 83 catching. Slow development though, that's not good. Not a very good blocker, but that Bears pass offense got a lot better in this draft. Abraham Rich ended up being very good. I put him in conversation for Rookie of the Year. Sheldon Ladler though, who are they going to play? I'm not sure what's going to happen with that Tennessee backfield. Ladler turned out to be very good. The Browns traded up late in the 7th round for a punter. Not sure why they gave up future draft capital to do that. The Chiefs' first selection was a very good defensive end in Leland Sharpton. Then there was Clifford Thorpe, the Heisman winner with superstar development. He's going to play alongside Von Miller, and I'm not very excited about it. Here are the Saints. They took Lorenzo Mallard at 8th overall, and he had 73 zone coverage and a lot of very good ratings. I would have loved to have him on this team, but he went very early. Josh Rasmussen, here are his ratings. The ultimate franchise quarterback in this draft. Superstar, 96 throw power, accuracy is phenomenal. The Jets, though, they took 2 quarterbacks, 2 swings at it. Both of them appear to be pretty good, so I'm not sure what the Jets are going to do. Then there was Rashawn Jarrett Eddy, drafted by the Texans, and he had draft stories. I thought about taking him at one point, but not knowing any of his ratings, it would have been such a risk. And here was a late pick for the Bears. I like Sylvester Morrell, we knew that already. And he had quick development, 78 overall. I mean, he compares very nicely to Reggie Shepard, and they got him way later after they took a franchise quarterback. We have to keep an eye on the Bears this year. They won the draft. It appears anyway. And we'll see what happens. That starts with the preseason up next. But I did make some more signings to this team, and let's get to know some more players that you didn't see in the stream. I moved J.C. Treader from guard to center because I had originally moved him to guard in the stream. But then there was a comment in my off-season video where someone suggested just playing Treader at center, moving Slauson back outside to guard, and I thought that made a lot of sense, so I'm doing that at least. We're going to try that first up. Then I made a bunch of undrafted signings here, a lot more than I needed to, but they're all non-guaranteed contracts, so why not take as many good players as I think there are out there. I also released a few players. 2 were practice squad players last year, and then Daryl Stuckey as well. And then signed a few more veterans. But here are some of my favorite undrafted free agents. Frank Sanderson from Montana, 97 throw power. He's a project, and he's going to be a guy who's a candidate for the practice squad at least. Next up, running back Zach Bogan from Washington. He's a speedster. I wanted to find a good young returner, and there's going to be a competition between Zach Bogan and wide receiver KC Wilcox from UAB. Both can fly, and we'll see who can do the best on special teams. They'll get offensive opportunities as well. And here's the tight end, Derek Anelli from Montana State. He has good speed, catching's a little low, but run blocking is good, so perhaps the blocking tight end of the future. How about Darius Gums from Texas? We need D-line depth. There's not a lot of competition there, so there's a good chance some of these undrafted guys on the D-line can stick, like Aaron Enzer from UConn. I'm excited to see these guys play. At quarterback, 6'2", 206, Casey Mackey from Houston, along with Philip Goings from Delaware State. After not addressing safety the way I would have liked, I found the undrafted player Christopher Costin from North Dakota, who has 80 zone coverage and 74 tackling. 5'11", 203, we'll see what he can do. Safety is wide open and for the taking, both spots. Here is our preseason schedule. The Colts, Bengals, Vikings, and 49ers will be our exhibition games. And here is a look at some of the rookies that are going to be on this team. I have numbers and some accessories done for a lot of these players. Didn't mess around with the undrafteds at all. I gave Caesar Butler number 41. We'll see if he can continue the legacy of that number. But then there's Larry Wilbur. Which one of these rookies is going to have the biggest impact in their rookie seasons? And then there's Gordon Urban. Can he rise above my expectations of being a backup and show that he has signs of being a starter one day? We will find out that and a lot more in the preseason. That is going to be later this week on my channel, along with the highlight video for Season 1, and then it's on to Year 2 in the Chargers franchise. Thank you all for watching today's video, and one piece of feedback I would like, other than wanting to know what you guys thought of this offseason, but I'm also looking at tweaking injuries and fatigue a little bit. I want to know what you guys are playing with and getting good results from, because we didn't see much injuries from Season 1, and we've seen this throughout franchises on my channel, and especially late in the season we get a big advantage when we have almost nobody hurt and other teams are missing 3 or 4 starters. So I want to get more sim in the injury department, and I want to know what is going to be the right setting to do that. I'm on 50 injury, 50 fatigue, and we saw how Year 1 went already. And I guess I have an additional one more thing. I would like to do a better job of covering the rest of the league in this series, whether it be with just more content at the end of each episode showing what's going on, or a video every now and then just focusing on what other teams are doing and which rookies are doing well, because now we know a lot of the storylines going into this year, like the Bears offense and some of the players I liked on various teams. It'd be fun to follow those guys. And I want to know, do you guys want to see like a news video every 4 games, every 8 games, or something like that? I like a lot of feedback from you guys to continue improving this series, making it the best that I can. And now, that's it. But that's going to wrap this up, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. The offseason was fun, although not perfect. I'm just excited to have players like Reggie Shepard and Larry Wilbur on this team. And I'm looking forward to seeing the undrafteds as well, because there are opportunities for the taking. And I can see a few of these undrafted guys sticking and playing major roles when the season rolls around. So leave your feedback down below and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.